It's time to turn red.
But I'm a monster.
People have all kinds of sides to them, and some sides are messy. The point isn't to push the bad stuff away, it's to make room for it. Live with it. Hey, erase it if you want.
Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad. Hold on. You're not going out like that, are you? My panda, my choice, Mom. Nothing stays the same forever. I'm so We've all got an inner beast. We've all got a messy, loud, weird part of ourselves hidden away. And a lot of us never let it out. But I did. How about you? Nobody like you had friends and I've had buddies. It's true, but they don't turn my tummy.
That's right, Turning Red broke my heart. Now, you might be saying, Luke Filmboss, how high were your expectations for this animated Pixar original? And how bad could it have possibly been to break your heart? And to answer that, I would say my expectations really were not that high. I had problems with this movie in the trailer. I spotted some things that I wasn't quite sure about. And when I actually watched the movie, it wasn't necessarily bad, at least not by the standard that one would think. In fact, this movie is kind of fantastic, and I love it. But that's also why the film broke my heart. Let me explain. The movie is about a 13-year-old Chinese Canadian girl named Maylin Lee. She's fun, energetic, determined, and respectful to both her parents and her friends. She's just an all around good person. But as she grows up, things get a little crazy as she enters her teen years, and there's a lot of conflict that comes between her and her mother. There are so many interesting avenues that this movie decides to dive into and explore through its story and themes. There's overprotective parents and unrealistic expectations and standards, and how that will drive a child to rebellion against the parents. While this movie also talks about having respect for your parents and trying not to disappoint your parents even when you don't live up to their standards. And oh my goodness, there's just so much good stuff in this movie. The style and the look of this movie is so bombastically normal to the point where everything is somewhat realistic, but it's over exaggerated and cartoonish to the point that it's just so entertaining and fun to watch. Some of the style in this movie is kind of like played out almost like a very well made TV commercial. It's pretty creative. You might be able to tell that there was a lot that I appreciated about this film. I honestly loved it. Almost. You see, throughout the movie, some of the characters make some questionable decisions and say some questionable things, and the whole movie is building up through these little tidbits of plot and story and dialogue towards building up to this final theme and this final message. You have the first two acts where the characters and the conflicts are set up and explored, and then you get to the third act where the conflict is has to be stopped. It has to be resolved with some sort of closure. It's up to the third act to make the whole movie work. And there were so many ways that they could have ended this movie with a very powerful, strong message that both the characters and the audience watching it would learn. But the message is handled so poorly that it does more harm by a moral standard than it does good. There were three main messages that I was able to gather from this movie, and I'm going to talk about each of them and how they kind of ruined the movie for me. Why these messages are somewhat harmful and just a bad example, especially for a movie that was supposed to be targeted towards children. Message one: don't push the bad stuff away, make room for it, and learn to live with it. Whew. It's getting kind of cold in here. The second message has to do with giving your teenagers more freedom and treating them more like an adult, which, if done rightly, is a good thing. But this movie takes that message to the extreme, to the point where it almost seems like it's telling parents that they should let their teenager make all of their own choices as long as they're being respectful, which is not good. Your teenager should still have rules. Message three: let your messy, loud, weird inner beast out. Let's get into all of these because it's gonna be quite the conversation. One thing that I loved about this movie is how well it understands and portrays early teenage life and the struggles that come with it of growing and changing, especially when you have like an overly protective parent who, in many cases, embarrasses you. And this movie exaggerates and puts things to like the extreme in every situation, and in the plot, in the story, the scenes and the situations, it works amazingly. I love it. But when it comes to the themes and the messages and what this movie is trying to say, you cannot go from one extreme to another. For example, with the whole story plot point of the overprotective mom, where Malin's mom is way too protective and embarrasses her and pushes her over the edge to the point where Malin becomes rebellious and goes behind her mom's back and lies and stuff like that. Yes, that was partly in fault of the mother for being overly protective and not letting her daughter experience anything. Because you have to let your children, your teenagers, become an adult at some point. They need to have some sense of their own person. You cannot control your child, but by that same token, you have to have rules. And this movie seems to take it to the other 180 extreme, to where you just need to let your child make their own decisions and do what they want to do, go where they want to go with who they want to go with. And no, you cannot do that. It cannot be one or the other. There needs to be a balance of not protecting your child so much that you control their life, letting them make some decisions, but also having a boundary, also having rules. Not, oh, my daughter loves me and she's, for the most part, respectful to me now and stuff. So let's let her do whatever she wants as long as she's respectful. No, that is dangerous. Your child is going to get into trouble if that's the way you approach things and the way you handle things. There needs to be a balance, and this film kind of doesn't get that. It's kind of telling you the opposite. And the panda, it's hard to understand what the panda represents in this movie. Yes, as said by the director of the film, it represents puberty and like how change happens in the teenage years. But it's clear that the panda represents something much more, because one thing about puberty is it ends. Like, it doesn't last forever. Whereas in this movie, spoilers from here on out. If you don't want spoilers, go away. Sorry. But the panda, Malin chooses to keep and to embrace the panda. You cannot do that with puberty. It is a phase. It ends. And yes, it takes longer than a month, which in this film is how long it would have taken for Malin to get rid of the panda. But the panda is symbolic. Obviously, puberty is still a thing in this world. The panda does not take out puberty because it represents puberty. But overall, it's obvious. I hate to get into the political side, but obviously the filmmakers behind this film were trying to push their woke agendas. And one big one is that the panda definitely represents sexuality, like how they're trying to encourage young people to embrace who they are and their sexuality. And it's really sad. And it's they try to hide it because in the context of the story, everybody in this movie is straight. At least as far as I could tell, all the main characters definitely were all straight. Girls like boys, boys like girls. It's as simple as that. But what the panda represents and what the movie is trying to say about embracing the bad things, like the movie says that. Don't push the bad things away. Make room for them. Embrace them. Make them part of you. What is this movie trying to say? No, if you have something bad in your life, if there's something inside of yourself that is bad, you do not make that a part of you. You need to change that. I'm sorry. You need to change. If there is something bad in you, it needs to either be taken out or changed. Like, you can make a bad situation into a good situation, but you cannot take something bad in yourself and somehow use that to be good. No, the bad things need to be taken out. But this movie is telling you embrace all of it. Embrace yourself. Become who you're meant to be. And it's telling people to, I'm going to get into this more, but it's pretty much saying if you want to be something, be it. It doesn't matter what that is. And that is a dangerous way to tell young people what to do with their future. There's multiple references to gyrating and how I'm going to gyrate if I want to. It's sad. And I already think that there's a problem, especially on social media, especially TikTok, with girls exposing themselves and twerking in front of the whole world, like allowing the whole world to see them do that. And this movie is 100% supporting that. There's also some other references that aren't exactly encouraging some things, but in a sense, if you look down deep into what it's saying, it's very questionable. And then with the whole movie's theme of saying embrace those bad things, embrace the inner panda, be who you're meant to be, choose who you're gonna be. The line at the end, oh my gosh, it was awful. My panda, my choice, mom. Obviously, it was a blatant reference to my body, my choice, which is often used to support abortion, which I'm not even going to get into that whole can of worms of why the whole my body, my choice thing does not work. But it's what is this movie doing for society? It's telling young teenage girls to go embrace what they want. And throughout the movie, it's talking about girls shaking their butts and showing themselves off and going behind their parents' backs and lying and doing things to get money. There's references to hitting your friends up in the bathroom.
What'll help me think?
A little panda.
Abby, come on, May. It'll clear my mind. Just a little hit. It's so cute. Oh, yeah. That's the stuff.
And it's like so many things like, yes, this movie understands teenage life, but there has to be a good moral message at the end to set the record straight. Do not encourage the crazy partying, which ended up very badly. Do not encourage flaunting your body. Oh my gosh, this movie, so many good things, potential to portray these things that teenagers really deal with, portray them in the light that they should have, but by the end, it's encouraging these things. And that is what broke my heart about this movie. This movie had so much good potential. I love the characters. I love the way the story was told up until it got to the point where it takes what should have been a good message about having a balance, about having respect for your parents' authority, while also not over sheltering, not over protecting your kids, not trying to control them. And it turns it to one extreme to say, let your teenagers do whatever they want. And it is disgusting by the end. Like I said, I love this movie, but I also detest what this movie is standing for. I really, the more I think about it, it really gets on my nerves. It's a movie that I'm going to watch again. It is a movie that I would not recommend to anyone. I would not say, this is a good movie, you should watch it. I might watch it with some friends and then have a discussion with them afterwards. There's scenes in this movie that are great. There are some positive messages in the movie, But with what the movie does at the end, it destroys any goodwill that this movie might have had. Any good intent is destroyed through a very blatantly terrible moral message that encourages wrong, very destructive teenage behavior. It is sad. One thing that I just wanted to touch on is the fact that this movie should not be PG. It should be PG-13. There is a lot of mature themes. I have talked about a lot of the stuff that I had problems with, and lots of the references that are very mature, very just not good for a PG movie. It should be PG-13. Not only because of the references, but also because of some of the plot points. Like, there is literally a plot point in this movie that deals with periods, and pads are openly shown and discussed in this movie. And there's like this scene, and I get the context, but once again, it's like, because of the way the movie played out, it just leaves a very bad message. But Malin is like fighting her mom, and they're both in the panda form, and they're like having this argument, and like sort of in a act to like kind of get her mom to like back down. Like, she kind of like in somewhat defiance starts like twerking as the panda in front of her mom, making her mom really uncomfortable. But it's just like, it kind of got really weird, and one of Malin's friends shouts, it's like, how many references in this movie are just very not, it's like not even like the subtlety that most Pixar movies has. This movie blatantly outright says things that are not child appropriate. To most children probably won't know what half this stuff means. It does not make it right to be in a kid's movie. Some of the references in most Pixar movies, yes, adults will understand them, and kids won't, but they are not references that are necessarily bad. There is blatant references to strippers in this movie.
I call it stripper music. What's wrong with that?
It's kind of disgusting. Yeah, this movie definitely should not have been PG. It should be PG-13. I would advise you to think about that if you're thinking about letting your kids watch this movie, or sitting down with your kids to watch this film. I would say I would not let anyone under the age of 10 watch this. I would say maybe let your preteens watch it, but with supervision, and discuss this movie with them. Same with your teenagers. With the way this movie portrays its message, it's a very slippery slope to let your teenager just watch it, because they might become more rebellious after watching this film, because it does not portray the rebellion necessarily as a bad thing, which there's not as much, there's some, but the consequences are not what they should have been. There should have been much more consequence. Malin goes behind her mom's back, rebels, she lies to her mom, does all these things, kind of manipulating kids to get money. It works in the context of the story. I'm not saying that you cannot portray flaws in human nature. You cannot show, main characters can make flaws, can do things wrong, but there has to be repercussions, much more consequence, especially than there was in this film. And in the end, you cannot tell the audience that what the character did was justifiable. No, there has to be more consequence, and there just isn't. There's the conflict at the end that is brought on by Malin's act of rebellion, which causes the mom to become this giant red panda. You'll understand if you watch the movie. But then it portrays the mom the entire time as the 100% full bad guy, which is not correct. It's not correct. And yes, in the end, they make up. Everything goes well in the end. But you can't do that. It takes it way to the one extreme. No balance whatsoever. Last thing I want to say is that there's really no male appeal in this movie whatsoever. It is made almost entirely strictly for girls. The style and the characters, there are some guys, myself included, who can really grow to like and appreciate this movie. Uh, but overall, like, this is not a movie made for guys. I'd say probably 90% of all the men on this planet would find this movie to be absolutely stupid. Uh, I know friends, my own friends, uh, that couldn't get into this movie. After like 10 minutes, they had to turn it off because they just had no desire to watch it. The directors definitely were making this movie for girls, and that's not a bad thing. Girls can have their own movies, but in most cases, you need to have a wider audience appeal. There's like 100% almost no male appeal in this movie whatsoever. So there is a short film that I loved and adored. I think I'm pronouncing this right. It's called Bo. Uh, it's like this short Pixar film uh, that was released alongside The Incredibles 2 back in 2018 about this bow. It's like a Chinese food. This lady makes this bow and it like comes to life. And it's very heartwarming. I would suggest go watch it. But it's directed by the same lady that directed Turning Red. And as I was watching Turning Red, I'm like, I can see in the animation style, in the story, it's very similar. Pretty much Bo talks about this overprotective mother and how that pushes her son to rebel against her and go to leave, and how it damaged their relationship by being overly protective. That short film was amazing. I'd give it like a 98%. It's an amazing short film. It is so well made, and I can see why Disney and Pixar would have given the director this film. And she does pretty much the same story, just a little bit different. But whereas the end of that Bo short film was perfect, it completely did what it was supposed to do. How she went to this Turning Red is beyond me, because I don't know. Like I said, this movie breaks my heart because of what it could have been. That short film is the exact thing that this movie should have been, only in a bigger, more broad, full-length movie scope. But that's what this movie should have been. If I want to watch this movie or get the message out of this movie, I can just watch Bo, watch it for a 7-minute short film, and I get a better lesson out of it than this movie that had so much potential, so many good things about it. It was setting up for such a good conclusion payoff. But that third act, it is all down to that third act to bring what the movie is trying to say to a conclusion, and it completely 100% destroys any goodwill that this movie had and was trying to say, and murders it. And that is why Turning Red broke my heart. In the end, I'd say this is a good film. I would give it a 70% in quality. It would have been much higher if this movie did not completely assassinate the morality that this film could have had, the moral message. And my personal enjoyment, I wanted to love this movie so bad, and I did love this movie so bad. And then it did me dirty. Everybody's going to have their own opinions on this. I know that I probably have an unpopular opinion. Obviously, this movie, I haven't looked into the reviews because I wanted to go into this movie fresh, but I did see that the overall Rotten Tomatoes score is like at a 95%. This movie is extremely well regarded. And it's sad. I give this movie a 40% in enjoyment. I liked a lot about this film, but it left me with an awful feeling. And so overall, I give this movie a 55%. Thank you all for watching. This has been Luke Film Boss. Please comment what your thoughts about this movie are, what your thoughts on my review are. If you made it through this whole review, I know it's very long, and I could have gone longer. I just had a lot of things I wanted to say about this movie, and I might even go in a little bit deeper in another video. I'm not sure how long that will take. I'm also working on another movie video essay on the Batman. But like, comment, and subscribe, and please hit that notification bell to help you be on the lookout for more videos from Luke Film Boss. I'll see y'all later. Bye.